And so the excretion tends to continue. And so that leads to what we call negative nitrogen balance. And I want to talk about that. The classic studies in this were done by George Cahill's group at the Joslin Research Foundation in the 1960s and published between 1960s through about 1975. And then Cahill went on and kind of summarized this in multiple review articles. And so this is a figure taken from one of those review articles. And this shows the 15 or 16 grams of, this is urinary excretion. And there's another gram that comes from skin and hair and things like that coming off the body. So this is the 16 grams of breakdown product coming out in a normal state. And then he says, and when starvation, it comes down dramatically. So you can see there's just a little bit of urea, some ammonia, and other things like creatinine coming out in the urine. And you add those up, they're about 5 grams per day. But this data has been misquoted at times where people say, look, the urea content is less than a gram. So actually, when people are fasting, they're not losing lean tissue. But I'll point out that this is not the first day of fasting. This is after 28 days of fasting, after the body's had a prolonged period of time to adapt to protein deprivation. And it does that very effectively. It cuts this protein breakdown from that turnover by a factor of 4, but it takes 28 to 30 days to achieve that. In the first few days, what happens? So this is a graph that was put together by Ernst Drenick, Jill Forbes and Drenick. And this was from multiple studies that they had done, and it shows nitrogen and weight losses in lean people, and those are the dashed lines here who are on total fasting. So lean people lose nitrogen and weight actually faster than obese people, which are these two lines, weight and nitrogen. But being severely obese doesn't protect the overweight person from this early rapid loss of nitrogen. The adiposity reduces the rate somewhat compared to a guy like me going on a fast, but not by very much. And there is a slow attenuation of the rate of loss, as you can see here. And is that an isolated observation? Has that been refuted by others? Well, there are multiple classic studies. Here's one on 72 lean and obese women fasted for 7 to 28 days. This is published by a German group back in 1975. And again, what they point out is that fasting men lose faster than women. Women are a little bit more conservative in terms of how they manage nitrogen, but both lose between 1/2 pound and 1/3 pound of lean body mass in the first week. So the most rapid losses are after the first few days. So when I say, well, I'm not too worried about the first few days, but after that, that's when you start to feel the backside of this sharp sword. So one other study done by some surgeons looking at whether you can mitigate nitrogen losses by infusing a deaminated version of a branched-chain amino acid. We'll ignore that, but this is the loss that they saw in terms of urea nitrogen in the first 14 days of fasting. You see, the people adapt very quickly, but the losses are greatest at the start. And you say, well, that's only 10 grams. Remember, there's typically 4 other grams of nitrogen besides urea that's being lost, so that takes it up to 14. Multiple studies, and I do not know of any studies that countervail this. So I've done my best not to cherry pick the data when I present this.